Hi, I'm Tara Jean. I'm with Dining Out Jersey Media at the Jersey Shore, and I'm with Tim McLoone of Holiday Express.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's
a good thing.
Yeah. This is great that I had the opportunity to talk to you because I know Holiday Express has a big event coming in the next few months for Clam Bake.
Well, it costs a lot to do what we do. We go to 100 places each year between November and December. And just even with buses and sound systems and the rest of it, costs a lot of money. So we do an annual Clam Bake on the beach right here and next to the Pier House in Long Branch. And that is responsible probably for 1/3 of our budget.
Really?
That's
great.
So we need people to come.
You have a lot of people coming this year?
Yep. I think people like our event because it's so different than typical fundraisers. We don't do a lot of speeches and you're sitting in the sand with your, with sandals on and a Hawaiian shirt. So it's a very different feel, and I think people appreciate that.
That's good. All right, so some of our viewers have never seen or been to a Holiday Express, and you have a great...
I find that very hard to believe.
There's a lot of people at the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
But we can see a lot on your website. We see a lot that you do. Let's go back to the first time it started and how you came up with this idea.
It's really kind of interesting because it was, like many things, it was accidental. Basically, there were a couple of tragedies in the United States going back into the 70s where there was the Johnstown flood, and Johnstown, Pennsylvania, flooded out that town, and a friend of mine who was a soap opera star, Mark Lemura, decided that it'd be a great thing for the soap opera people to put together a band and go to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which we did. And it was really a great feeling. It had nothing to do with the holidays or anything like that. We just went there and did a goofy show, and just to raise the spirits of the people who were all flooded out of their homes, not unlike what's going on now in certain parts of our country. And then it happened again with Fort Wayne, Indiana, a year later, also had a devastating flood, and we kind of, do you want to throw the band back together? So we all went out there to Fort Wayne, Indiana. It kind of lit a spark in me about that. The idea of just sort of bringing music and goodwill to people. Nothing really specific. And then I was working with the New Jersey Nets of the NBA, the then New Jersey Nets, they're now the Brooklyn Nets, but in the NBA. And my job was sort of show business with them. I announced the games, and I was in charge of the music and cheerleaders and mascot and all that stuff. And one of the players on Christmas Eve wanted to do something for people in Newark who were if they weren't homeless, they were home challenged anyway, and some homeless. And so on Christmas Eve, we went up to the Robert Treat Hotel, and there were a few hundred people there on Christmas Eve itself. And we had food, but that's all we had. I wasn't really organizing it. The Nets donated food, and there was some of the players there, and that was it. But it kind of got my attention to do something like that on Christmas Eve itself. For anyone that grew up in a Christmas tradition, but even a Hanukkah tradition, just a feeling that something special you should do at the holiday time, better to give than receive and all that stuff. I could almost not talk about anything else for the next year. It just lit me up. So we started getting towards the next year. The player had been traded, but one of the owners was also there with us, a man named Don Unger. And I said, you want to do this thing again? We can do this, right? I said, I'm in the restaurant business. I'll bring some people and we'll take care of it. So we went back again, had a few hundred more people, and we brought some gifts this time, and I had a boombox playing Johnny Mathis tapes, Christmas tapes. Not very intelligent for a live musician, but it was great. And I brought my little daughter with me, my firstborn, and she and I went back on the Parkway with another friend of mine, Bob Keogh, and we're just singing Christmas songs in the car on Christmas Eve night, because it went deep into the afternoon and early evening. And I realized this is where we're supposed to be. And it started there, so again, another year went by, and I was talking about it to the point that some of the people that work for me were like, you're just going to keep talking about this? You're going to do it, Because now we're on our own. There's no more Nets doing it with us, and it's like, oh boy, do I want to take this on? So I did. We had a meeting on October 15th when we decided to call it Holiday Express, defeating the other contender for the name, which was the Traveling Jingleberries. That mercifully did not win.
Yeah.
So it became Holiday Express, and the idea being, it's not Christmas Express, it's holiday. And we're good with that. I'm leading the band in terms of political correctness. Okay. I believe in political correctness. I think it's the right thing to do. So we were holiday. And Express meant we were going to go to them. because we found out early on that one of the biggest challenges that people with lesser needs or physical disabilities have is transportation. They just can't get places. So sometimes we'll meet them at a mutual site because they want to get out and they have transportation available. But most times we go to where they are, and that's long-term, long-range residential psychiatric facilities, homeless shelters, soup kitchens, AIDS hospices. We try to go. I always say there's only two ways to get us to come to you. One is if we're not there, you get little or nothing, and that's those places, particularly like the psychiatric hospitals, where most of the people there are estranged from their caregivers or have outlived their caregivers. They have no visitors, and we're it. We are the holiday thing for them. Trenton Psychiatric, New Lisbon Psychiatric, all these amazing places, really. And I remember we went to New Lisbon the first time, and the woman in charge, we were kind of freaked out, being honest about it, just because we hadn't been exposed to that population before. And we knew they wouldn't have anybody there that was of a danger to us, but they just looked disoriented and whatever it would be, you know. And it worked out great. We had a great time. And so I went up to her after it was over, and I said, listen, next year, you should come out to the bus when we pull up and tell everybody in the bus what to expect, so they won't be frightened or whatever. And she started crying, and I said, what's the matter? She said, nobody ever comes back here next year. And we've been there now probably 20-something years in a row. But at any rate, it just started growing. So that first year, we had that meeting on October 15th. We had a rehearsal on November 15th. It's the only way I can remember these dates. And I invited all the musicians I knew from the area, working musicians, not just people that always wanted to be in a band, or sang in the glee club in grammar school, We had professionals,
right.
Because one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that the level of music was challenging enough that, first of all, the people would enjoy it, but we would enjoy playing it. Because I felt that if we were doing unison versions of Jingle Bells, everybody's going to quit on me. So the music turned out to be really good, but we were at our old Rum Runner in Seabright. I'm putting in as many plugs as I can in case you're not noticing.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's product placement, We were there, and 17 of them showed up, which shocked me. I thought we'd get like maybe 8 or 9 people. 17.
Purely volunteer.
Yeah, and at that time, the We Are the World had just happened, not that much before that, and they apparently had a sign that said, leave your ego at the door. I didn't have a sign, and everybody was a lead singer. It was just like, no, I do that in D. No, I want to sing that one. Why are you saying? Can we do harmony? It was going nowhere musically. Just it was rough.
Yeah.
And somebody, and I don't know to this day who did it, started singing. And so this is Christmas, the John Lennon song. And even thinking about that now, it still gets me, still chokes me thinking of that moment, that everybody got real quiet and then started harmonizing and singing, and that was actually the musical moment when Holiday Express was born, with John Lennon's Christmas song. And so we did 10 events that first year. Some of them were inappropriate. I didn't really know what I was doing.
What year was this?
Well, this is our 30th year, so 93.
93, okay.
And so a couple of places we shouldn't have gone to, just because they were more, we were there kind of as entertainment for people that were not really needy. But we learned early on, don't do hospitals. My dad worked at the Veterans Hospital in East Orange. He was in charge of entertainment and sports for the veterans that were there, ironically enough, I guess. And I called the woman who had his job 60 years later, and I told her what we were going to do, and she said, that sounds wonderful, but we're booked until December 21st or something. I can give you December 21st at 2 in the afternoon. And I said, excuse me? She said, oh yeah, we're sold out. So many people think of hospitals at a holiday time, that they've got every glee club, every music group, everybody in the world. So we don't go to hospitals unless they're special needs hospitals, like the psychiatric hospital. So that was the first thing we learned. And our first event was up in Connecticut. A friend of mine had a program called Better Beginnings, Sarah Tucker, and she talked me into it. We go into a place, and it was run by the Junior League. We don't know anything about this, and we're on this long bus trip up to Stamford, Connecticut for our first ever event. And the room does not speak English.
Oh my God.
And we did like 5 versions of Feliz Navidad.
Wow.
And Mamacita, Donde Está Santa Claus. And but it was great. It was great. The
That's
people
great.
were wonderful, and it was actually a program for children who have children. 16-year-olds with little
Oh my
kids
God.
and stuff like that. So they were trying to give them some life skills while we were entertaining the little ones. It was hilarious. But what ended up happening, of course, is the bus comes back and we dump out, again at the Rum Runner in Seabright, New Jersey. We dump out of the bus and everybody started crying. Just
Wow. I mean, it really
touched
sounds like
everybody. Oh, nobody
making
leaves.
an impact.
Nobody leaves Holiday Express really to speak of, unless they move away or move on.
Yeah.
But it's that touching, because why else would everybody do this for free? So as I say, the two ways you get us to come is if we're not there, you get nothing, or your need is so great that we don't care if you're getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually severely disabled children and their families, which, if you have a disabled child in your family, from a birth defect particularly, I've always said it's like an atomic bomb going off in that family. And so when we have some of those, it's fine. I don't care. We're just happy to be there. And the end of the whole thing is that the saying, it's better to give than receive. We found out that, boy, do we receive. We receive plenty. I've said from the beginning, my job is when everybody gets back on the bus on the way back, that they sit down, they were glad they were there. That was me getting them paid. Not me, but, arranging that thing. They got paid because it just felt so good, And
Definitely, you can't put a price on a feeling like that.
Yep. And because it's terrible that we're doing all this stuff in November and December. We squeeze 100 events in 40 days.
I was going to ask that. My
So there's
God.
2 in a day, 3 in a day, 3, 3, 3. And
you
so we have
all get
multiple
on the
bands.
bus and you
Well, we have
go.
multiple bands and multiple volunteers. We have, I don't even know sometimes,
How many?
1,500, 2,000 volunteers who do all the other stuff. They carry all the equipment, carry everything in and out, get the food. They paint faces. They dance with people. And it's just this one thing. It's just one for all for one, And the other part of it, I think, is just that we came to realize after a bunch of years, we knew we were doing a good thing. How can you not know? And it would be foolish for us to say, oh, no, it's nothing. No, it was something, But what we found out was that what really happened was we were all healing ourselves from things that went wrong in our lives and different things that happened. One of my children got critically ill during Holiday Express one year, and it made it easier for us to deal with it at the time because we'd see all these other people who had it so much worse, And so for us to get into a feel sorry for yourself moment wasn't going to happen. And so it ends up that, for all the left-hand and right-hand turns that our lives took, bad decisions, good decisions, whatever it was, whatever the things were, this thing is the one good thing that we've all ever done. I'm sure there's other things people have done, but you know what I mean? It is a purely good thing. There's no agenda. We're not selling anything.
Wow. It sounds like such a beautiful time being there. I think that if there's any way people could be a part of it that haven't, what's the best way? Would they be able to go to the website?
Sure. holidayexpress.org.
Is there ever going to
simple.
be a cap on people to help? Like there's not...
That's a good question, actually, because it has happened. Well, particularly the pandemic disrupted everything. I was talking about the other day how, we took a 2-year vacation there of doing these shows that would beat the heck out of me, but it was a good beating. And I guess 2 years ago, we went to the first one we had done live. We were sending videotape. We would perform a concert and then send it to the places we couldn't go to in person, And so we finally did a live one. It was outdoors. Maybe it's 3 years. Heaven knows.
I know we
30,
lost those
30
years.
years of doing this. But we were outside somewhere, and we had our usual crowd, and we're about 3 songs in, and I turned around to the bass player right behind me and said, "Oh, I remember why we do this." It was just not that I didn't remember, but until we were actually doing it and getting that feeling. I try not to overstate what music does for people, but it does. We have what we call Holiday Express moments, and they almost seem like they're impossible to be true. We had one that comes to mind at the Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. There was a man there who was clearly an irritant to everybody, and you get this broad panoply of people's behaviors when you're in a place like that. And we see all the caregivers are in the back of the room, all the therapists and orderlies and all that, and they're pointing at this guy who's irritating the heck out of us. We play on the floor. We don't play on stages. We want to be at eye level with the people we see, and they're welcome to come up and sing with the band, Sometimes it's a little scary, but it's all right. And then sometimes they're better than we are, which is even more scary. We've met some amazing people over the years who, for whatever reason in their lives, they're in these circumstances. But at any rate, this guy would not give up the microphone, just wouldn't give it up. He could sing a little bit, I guess, but somebody else would start to sing and he'd come up and grab the microphone from him. Well, we're thinking this is horrible. Meanwhile, all the people in the back of the room are pointing and laughing, all the therapists, because they can't believe this guy's doing it. We find out later on he was a John Doe and had not spoken since he had been there for X number of weeks. It wasn't like he was there for 17 years, but he'd been there for a period of time and had not spoken to anyone. And then, as they said, they couldn't shut him up.
That's music, right?
He gave them his identification. He was a John Doe.
So you snapped him out of the music.
I guess.
Snapped him out of it.
Or it was that bad that he was,
No.
But it happens. Stuff like that happens. And almost every place we play, you get a moment that just sort of shakes us a little bit. And I think that's why everybody keeps coming back.
Yeah. And I love in your mission statement, you do say that you help the forgotten ones.
Yeah.
And when I first read that, I didn't understand like what exactly
neither
that
did
meant.
we.
But now I understand.
But we didn't understand either. We didn't know who they were. And if you think about it, the most down and out, I hate using that cliche, but the people that are in the worst circumstances do not have marketing firms helping them.
Right.
And they're not getting PR in the paper. You'll read a story about a homeless person being killed somewhere, or because for the most part, the people we run into, they're victims of violence. They're not perpetrators of violence. They're victims of it. We learned that up at the St. John's Soup Kitchen, which is where we end our year every year. And that's the place where the first event took place all those years ago. And the woman that ran it then, who has unfortunately passed away since, she pointed that out to me, that people are afraid of these people. But meanwhile, they're the victims. They're the ones that get beaten up in the street, or for what little they have, they get robbed, or whatever, and marginalized, not seen, all those cliches. It was a huge lesson for us. And we don't just deal with indigent people. Probably the most dramatic thing we ever did was I was running down Rumson Road one day in August, around this time of the year, a hellaciously hot day, and it occurred to me what we should do. And it was arguably the craziest moment maybe I've ever had in my life. I thought we should go to Columbine High School. It was after the killings, obviously, which had taken place that prior April. And it occurred to me that they're going to go into their first Christmas after the shootings. And I don't know what arrogance in me made me think that I had what they needed. But we eventually contacted people out there, and there was a lot of doubt going in. That we flew out, though, and the principal, who's still there, Frank D'Angelo, principal of Columbine High School, he's from Bloomfield, New Jersey. He's out in Colorado. Because you can't go anywhere without meeting Jersey people, right? And we built their trust that we were not looking for anything and that it wasn't a publicity stunt. Because while we were there, like a bus would come up in front of the high school, and people would jump out of it and stand in front of the Columbine High School sign and get their picture taken.
Oh my God.
And then get back into it, or a cab, or whatever.
So interesting.
And they also thought at first that they were getting supported by people because they sold out of all their merchandise, all their Columbine t-shirts. No, it's just people buying it as a souvenir.
Yeah, the souvenir.
So we get out there, and we're face to face with all the parents and families. It was brutal. It was really hard. Even thinking of it now, it's 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and it still resonates with me. We've stayed close with a couple of the families. This one woman in particular, Donana, whose daughter was the valedictorian and was killed in their library. And it changed Holiday Express permanently, because we went to the depths of human despair. There's nothing worse. And they welcomed us in. The one man said to me, it was weird, his son was killed outside the school. He was the first one actually killed. And he said, I haven't been able to smile since April. And he said, no, I can't stop. And it was just, we unlocked something.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think for all of us, that the original thing was for all of us, and I've said this a lot of times, who grew up in kind of a Christian world of Christmas and Santa Claus and all the rest of it. And we're all about Santa Claus, by the way. That when you lose that, the first time you actually say the words, I can't wait till Christmas is over, what has happened to you? You know, where it becomes a nuisance, and oh, I got to go to this party, and I got to get presents for my family, and I can't wait till this is all. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So we go to a lot of places that look unaccepting of us, you know, and that's what usually the first thing I tell them. Listen, we're all going to be 10 years old here. Just give in. Don't fight us off, you know. And so it's reawakening that in everybody, and that whatever their feelings were back then. And in some cases they weren't good, you know, but in most cases they were. And so it reignites that. You know.
So tell me what an experience is, the whole process. So you have the music, you go out off the bus, you go into the place where you're going, and do you greet everybody?
Well, we bring food and gifts and volunteers.
Okay.
And prizes. We have contests sometimes.
So you do contests.
So we throw what we think is the ultimate holiday party. When you were 10 years old, what kind of a party would make you happy? And part of it's getting your face painted. And adults get their faces painted.
Yeah,
you know, so, and it really is, you know, a woman named Moon who has still involved with us, but she was a writer, and she coined the phrase "bringing the gift of human kindness," which to me seemed a little exalted, you know, because, you know, I don't like thinking that people think of us that way in a sense. Human kindness. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
Bringing the gift of human kindness. We went to an AIDS hospice in New York City a few years ago, and I remember a man saying to me, and this is basically where they go to pass. They're not coming out of there. And he said, I haven't danced with a woman in 35 years. It was so cute. Oh yeah, it was so cute. You know, and that's the thing. What we get, as I said, we get so much out of this because we meet all these people. And then if it beats the heck out of prejudices out of you, because you see just the human nature of all of it, that we're all the same. You know, you know. I mean, everybody has racist tendencies that lurk around in your bed. Depends on how you were raised and stuff, and all kinds of tendencies. But it beats the heck out of it. You can't do it. You can't be in these places and be that way.
You're changed after it. You have to be changed.
Yeah.
And then each time you go to a new place, you bring that with you, so you don't go in with judgment. And I could see all of that's amazing.
I love it when we get new people. You're going to be one of them.
I am going to be.
When they go the first time, they're like, "Oh my God!" You know, and we do know how to talk to people. Don't be worried. Everything's good. You know, nothing bad's going to happen here. Because I think we've done. I don't even know. I do know, but I don't have it with me. I think we've done like 1,400 and something events over the 30 years. In the beginning, like I said, it was 10 the first year, then 17, then 24. I do remember those numbers. 26, and then we got to like 30 something, and I stopped counting. And
that's a lot.
All of a sudden we got to 100.
Events. You go to each one?
I don't. I can't because we do sometimes.
I can't imagine.
I do half of them. Yeah. I basically do 50 events, and
then
I get as sick of the 12 days of Christmas as you could possibly imagine. I said to our drummer one time a couple years ago, we're in the middle of it. It's towards the end of the season. We're in show number 93 or something, and I turned around to the drummer. I said, "I'm not sure I'm going to make it to the Swans of Swimming." It's killing me. You know?
That's funny. No, it's an amazing thing you do, and so this legacy you're leaving behind, this will always be, your name will be on it. But is your family involved? Do you have, like, how is it working?
Well, I don't. I'm hoping my name won't be on it because that it'll just exist on its own.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize that for whatever my upbringing was, I always tell people, if you didn't meet my father, if you like me, you would have really liked my father. I am a shadow of my father's personality. I really am, and he taught me this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and living at a veterans hospital, also seeing what I saw when I was a little boy at that veterans hospital it made me less afraid. You know, so I don't know, legacies and stuff like that. My hope is just that it does keep going, and we talk about it a lot. When we started this, I was 45, which, if you can do the math.
Well, you have a great team.
We do.
Yes. So who do you credit that it keeps going? It can't just be you. You must have this amazing team.
By the way, it's not me almost at all now.
You don't even have to.
In the beginning, those first shows, I loaded up the truck, and I carried the water into the building, and then I set up the equipment for the band, and I led the singing, and we went home. Now I almost don't know how it happens. I really don't. Our office is fantastic. We have a half dozen paid volunteers, but that's it. Everybody else is 100% volunteer, and they all work for less than they should. But I've always said that armies could learn a lot from us about the movement
Well,
of
it
stuff
sounds
and getting
like-
it there. We can't be late. We can't, because this is it.
Yeah.
Every place we go, almost everywhere, we are their entire holiday experience. We're it. And if we don't go for some reason, or we're late getting there, or the food doesn't get there, so somehow or other, all these trucks and a bus and people in their individual cars, if they have to drive there, they all converge on these places. And then there's the hurry up of setting it up. And like when we have restaurants, including ours, mentioning the Rum Runner again, and Seabright. There's other restaurants too that do restaurant shows for us.
Okay.
And the volunteers, the band and everybody, we serve the people. They don't get on a buffet line. We bring plates to them.
Nice.
And just to give them that one moment, the Vrola company, who we buy a lot of beef product from, one time they gave us steaks for Eva's Village in Patterson, and it was like about 400 people in this room. We served them a steak dinner. And it was crazy, right?
Yeah.
We drew the line, or they drew the line at candles on the tables. I couldn't get that done. Fire laws and all that stuff.
Sounds amazing.
But we try to give the people experiences that just tell them that, somebody cares, I guess is what it comes down to. Because I have to say, on our end, like even going back to Columbine, I don't think I've ever been as sad in my entire life as I was when that show was over. At least not musically, because I felt like we did nothing. That the mountain of grief was so large, and we're chipping away at the bottom of it, trying to play some happy songs. It was really difficult. But what the good part of all this is, and what they tell us, because we're in these places for a couple of hours a year, that's it, right? But they tell us, and almost all of them, well, they start looking forward to it about 2 months before you get here, and that's all they can talk about, and then you do the thing, and then they talk about you for 2 more months, arguing about what was the best song, and how old is Tim, and how much longer you think he can stand up, all those kind of little questions.
That's cute. Wow. So nice. So wonderful. And I'm so glad you're doing this, and I'm so glad we can share this, and if we can get more people to help.
Sure.
Okay.
HolidayExpress.org takes care of everything.
There you go.